Morning again from the beautiful Palmetto state of South Carolina. Looks good out there, doesn't it? Today I want to talk to you about you being involved. The scripture comes from Matthew 21:28 through 32. So we've got some things to talk about today. Okay, boomers. Do you recognize that phrase? Okay, boomers. Of course, not all of you that are listening today or watching today are boomers. I realize that. You had to be born between 1946 and 1965 to be a boomer. Now, what does it mean, okay, boomer? According to Wikipedia, okay, boomer is a phrase used by younger people to dismiss or mock attitudes stereotypically attributed to the baby boomer generation. It is considered by some to be disrespectful and egregious. Unfortunately, some people have used the phrase disrespectfully in workplace or at home. For example, if they were asked to do something unpleasant, they might answer, okay, boomer, as if the task were beneath them. Fortunately, the okay, boomer response is a fad that has already begun to fade. The truth is, however, that every generation has been critical of generations before and after them. To be honest, I never heard of that term used before. That doesn't matter. I still don't know what woke means. Okay, boomer could relate to the story that Jesus told about a man who had two sons. The man went to the first son and said, son, I want you to work in the vineyard today. The son was in somewhat of a rebellious mood, and with a thick tone of sarcasm, he answered to the older man, okay, boomer. Of course, that's not what he answered. He did worse than that. With defiance, he answered, I will not. I don't know what would have happened to some of us if we had answered our fathers like that. Probably a fat lip. But that's what this boy did. Afterwards, however, he regretted how he had answered his father, and he went to the vineyard and he did what his father requested. Then the father went to the second son and made the same request. Second son replied somewhat differently. Okay, boomer. No, that is not what he said either. He also said something worse. He said, I will, sir. Why is that worse? It's worse because he never did what his father requested. He was polite. The problem is he never went to the vineyard. Now ask Jesus, which son did the will of his father? Jesus asked his disciples and the people around him, which son did the will of his father? The defiant son who said he wouldn't work, but did, or the polite one who said he would work, but didn't? You can always judge character by good manners. Really? Can you? I don't think so. Many people have been misjudged on the basis of their etiquette. In this parable, we see two types of persons. The response of the first son is defiance. No, I won't go. How dare you ask me to do that? I had plans. I was going out with my buddies today. Many of you who are parents have encountered that kind of response at some time or another. Some people, whether young or old, have a stubborn streak in them that causes them to rebel no matter how harmless the request. A 4-year-old child named Melissa may have had that streak of stubbornness. Melissa saw the classic movie 10 Commandments, and the one thing she remembered about it was that God's name, I am that I am. For days after that, true to her contrary style, Melissa strolled around the house announcing, I am not that I am not. Do you know any 4-year-olds with that same contrary nature? Former competitive swimmer and 9-time Olympic champion Mark Spitz might have had a touch of that stubbornness. Spitz, you may remember, won 7 gold medals in the '72 Summer Olympics in Munich, an all-time world record. This was an achievement that lasted 36 years until surpassed by Michael Phelps, who won 8 gold medals in the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing. Some of you may also remember that in an era when other swimmers were shaving their body hair, Spitz spawned a mustache. When asked why he grew a mustache, Spitz stated, I grew the mustache because my coach in college said I couldn't grow one. Did you ever know of someone like that who did things just because they were told not to do them? Was that when you were young, possibly? Spitz said he originally grew the mustache as a form of rebellion against the clean-cut look imposed on him in college. It took a long time to grow, he said, but he grew it to take pride in his mustache. A coach of the Soviet Union team once asked Spitz whether having a mustache in the pool slowed him down. Spitz replied in jest, nope. In fact, he said, it deflected water from his mouth, which made him even faster. Then he added that this was the actual reason he was such a terrific swimmer, his mustache. Spitz was just joking, but the Soviet coach took him seriously. The following year, the entire Soviet team grew mustaches, all because a coach told Mark Spitz he couldn't have one. Maybe you have a member of your family who has a little stubborn streak in them. We all know people whose first response to anything is no. Fortunately, many of these somewhat ornery people have good hearts. And if they have time to reconsider and see the worth of the project, they will even eventually pitch in and be among some of the best workers. That was the first son in the parable. He was initially defiant, but after reflecting on his father's request, he changed his mind, put his work clothes on, went to the vineyard. Though he was quite polite, the response of the second son was really much worse than the older brother's defiance. His response was insincere. The second son was like many of us. There are many people who are nice, friendly, basically Christian people who will never argue when asked to do something, never even protest. And yet, getting them to actually do something is nearly impossible. Years ago, there was a story that came out in the paper about the city commissioners of Miami, Florida, and they had established a municipal beautification committee. They appointed 25 members to this committee, going to spruce up the town. Word got around that this committee was being formed, and it seems like everybody wanted to be on the committee. Request after request was granted until 131 citizens were appointed to the Municipal Beautification Committee. Then the committee had a meeting to get organized and to begin work, and only 19 showed up. People wanted to belong to the committee, but they didn't want to do the work. The younger son said he would work in the vineyard, but he never did. Interested in giving us a lesson in family life. He was talking about what it means to follow him. And what it means is this: it's time to get in action. It's time to put on your work clothes and get off the couch and get to the vineyard. It's not enough to be nice. It's not enough to be polite. It's not enough to have good intentions. There are already too many people that are nice, polite people who never get out into the vineyard. The Good Samaritan was not good because he had good manners and studied his Sunday school lesson. Jesus called him good because he saw a stranger in need and went to his aid. The rich young ruler missed out on the kingdom not because he was immoral. He testified that he had kept the commandments from the time he was young, and he had. He missed the kingdom not because he was immoral, but because he was not willing to give his possessions up. Jesus said, "Give them to the poor and follow me." Jesus knew what he was asking him. The rich young ruler couldn't do it. The man who built his life on a rock was praised not because he had the right theology, but because, as Jesus said, he hears my words and does them. Matthew 7:24. Hearing is important, but hearing is in vain without doing. Believing is important, but as the scriptures tell us, even the demons believe and tremble. As the epistle of James puts it so clearly, faith without works is dead. No matter how spiritual we may seem to be, if we're not willing to minister to the needs of the persons around us, we are no better than the rich man whose gate set the beggar Lazarus. The rich man didn't abuse him in any way, as far as we know. What was his sin that caused him, after his death, to wake up in torment in Hades? This is that awful sin. He walked right by him every morning and never saw him. He ignored Lazarus living in misery at his own gate and did nothing. This is what Paul meant when he said, if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but I have not love, I am nothing. A close reading of the Gospels will reveal that Jesus intended his followers to get into action, serving the world as he had served the world. That doesn't mean that he wanted us to keep busy just for the sake of keeping busy. There are a lot of churches that do that. They have a terrific calendar of activities, but very few of those activities are meaningful in bringing persons closer to the kingdom of God. Jesus did not mean for us to adopt a motto like the French Foreign Legion that said, when in doubt, gallop. He simply meant for us to give witness to our inner experience of his presence in our lives through outward service. During the Revolutionary War, a young man is reported to have come to George Washington and said, "General Washington, I want you to know that I believe in you and your cause. I fully support you, General Washington." Washington graciously thanked him and asked the young man, "What regiment are you in? Under whose command do you serve? What uniform do you wear?" Young man answered, "Oh, I'm not in the Army. I'm a civilian." Washington replied, "Young man, if you believe in me and my cause, then you join the Army. You put on a uniform and you get yourself a rifle and you fight." That is Christ's summons to us. We have not been called to be pious saints sitting in a corner with our hands folded in complacent contemplation. We're called to be soldiers in the army of Christ. If we believe in him and the cause for which he died, then we are called to take up his cross and walk in his footsteps, doing those things that he would do if he were with us in the flesh today. Now you may be thinking, I get it. I'm supposed to go out and work in the vineyard. I'm supposed to follow Jesus more closely. I'm supposed to serve others as he did. I really have good intentions. But where does the power come from to enable a person to make that kind of commitment to serve Christ? Power to make that kind of change in your life and in the lives of others comes from Christ alone. None of us had the power to fulfill Christ's call on our own. There's not a person here who does not have good intentions about being a better person. But the desire to accomplish that goal is not enough. We must see ourselves in this story of the two sons who were asked by their father to go into the vineyard and ask which of the two brothers were more resemble the one who rebelled at first but finally did his father's work, or the son who said, "Sure, I'll go," but never did. Then we must ask God for the courage and commitment to leave our comfort zone and to seek more closely a walk in the steps of the Master. I found this song that kind of covers what we just talked about. It just was happenstance that I came up on it. Song's title is Not Me. Is that what the younger son was saying? Was that what the older son was saying? Not me, not me. The song is by Kenny Thomas. He is an American country music singer and former United States Army Ranger. Thomas was a member of the Task Force Ranger as a part of the operation of Restore Hope in Somalia and served in the Battle of Mogadishu. Thomas works as a motivational speaker, drawing from his experience as a U.S. Ranger. The song goes something like this. Listen to the words. No one raised their hand that day when they asked for volunteers. He got picked out by default because he was the only daddy there. They said, "We know that you're thinking, choose someone else instead." But this league was built on coaches who stood right there and said, "Not me, not me. No way with this job of mine. I could never find the time. Not me, not me." The world becomes a better place when someone stands and leads the way, steps forward when they'd rather say, "Not me." The judge says, "You're the oldest," makes you legal guardian. I'm sorry how you lost your folks, but there's no next of kin. Two brothers and a sister. She knew how hard that it would be, but she softly said, "I'll raise them," while the voice inside her screamed, "Not me, not me. I can't believe what's happened. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Not me, not me." But this world becomes a better place when someone stands and leads the way, steps forward when they'd rather say, "Not me." A young captain at attention, a star pinned to his chest. He recalls the battle while the final roll call reads, "They were the finest soldiers. It was my privilege to lead. They deserve the medals, the men who died, not me. Not me, not me. I just did what I was called to do. You do the same if it was you. Not me, not me. But this world becomes a better place when some stands and leads the way, steps forward when they'd rather say, not me. Steps forward when they'd rather say, not me, not me." And all God's people said,